Okay, a polynomial is a mathematical expression involving a sum of powers in one or more variables multiplied by coefficients. Polynomials have variables which are raised to whole number exponents. There are no square roots of variables, no fractional powers, like you cannot have this and call it a polynomial. The exponents have to be whole numbers. And no variables in the denominator. Okay, like if you have 2 over x plus 4, that is not a polynomial because you have a variable in a denominator. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we defined polynomial. Now, each piece of the polynomial, each part that is being added or subtracted is called a, what do you call each individual thing in the polynomial? A term. Good. Polynomials can be named by their number of terms. So what do we call a polynomial with one term? A monomial. Okay? What do we call a polynomial with two terms? Binomial. And what about a polynomial with three terms? Trinomial. Okay, so all three of those are polynomials. It's just that they have specific names for a one-term polynomial, a specific name for a two-term polynomial, and a specific name for a three-term. If it is larger than three terms, we just call them polynomials. And sometimes your teacher will ask you to specify polynomial with 4 terms, or however many terms it has. Okay? We should always write polynomials so that the exponents decrease from left to right. Okay, does anybody remember what that's called when you write the terms so that the exponents decrease from left to right? What? Standard form. Okay, it's called standard form when you write it so that the exponents decrease from left to right. So right here we're going to rewrite the following polynomials so that the exponents decrease from left to right. A shorter way of saying that is write them in standard form. So what will this binomial look like once it's in standard form? Right, because 7 is your highest exponent, so it goes first. And then plus 5x to the 4th. Okay, it's still a binomial. We just reverse the order of the terms so the exponents decrease. 7, then 4. That's known as standard form. Okay, what about this one? What will this trinomial look like once it's in standard form? Okay, we just rearranged them so that the exponents decrease because this is an exponent of 2. This is an exponent of 1. There's an understood 1, and this has no exponent. So the exponents decrease. That's known as standard form. Okay, take a second and try these two by yourself. Yeah, you're just rewriting it in standard form, which means the exponents decrease from left to right. Okay, y'all ready? I didn't say anything. Okay, what will it look like once it's in standard form? Here we go. So, Kennedy, tell us again what this looks like in standard form. Right, plus 6x squared plus 5. Okay, so we still have a trinomial. There's still 3 terms. We just reordered them so that the exponents decrease from left to right. Okay, what about this one, Anna? Correct. Now, even though I'm sure you can all agree that writing a polynomial in standard form is very, very easy, do you know where I see the most mistakes made? Right, the sign. They will forget when they bring this 14 to the front that it's negative. So you have to pull that negative to the front with it. The 3x is positive, so you keep it positive. The 4x squared was positive, so you keep it positive. You have to carry its sign wherever you move it. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay, next page. All right, now we're going to start talking about coefficients. A coefficient is a constant number in front of a variable. Identify the coefficients below. Okay, so if the coefficient is the number in front of the variable, what is the coefficient of 3y cubed? 3. What is the coefficient of 6x? And what is the coefficient of negative 8a squared? Okay, what is the coefficient of b cubed? 1. Right, there's an understood 1 here. What's the coefficient of 5a to the 4th? And what's the coefficient of 14x to the 4th? Correct. So those are pretty easy too to identify the coefficient of a term. All right, the degree of a polynomial is the highest exponent in the polynomial or the exponent of the first term. Now, to go by the exponent of the first term, it must already be in standard form. Because think about it. If you've already taken time to put it in standard form, haven't you put the highest exponent first? And so that's why you could just look at the first term, because that's where the highest one will be. But that's only if it's already in standard form. Okay, the degree will also tell us how many solutions the polynomial has. This is called the fundamental theorem of algebra. What is the degree of the following polynomials? Okay, well first we write it in standard form, which we already did these. 2x to the 7th plus 5x to the 4th. So what is the degree of this one? The degree is the highest exponent. So out of those two terms, which one is the highest exponent? What? 7. Remember guys, there's only two exponents. 7's an exponent and 4's an exponent. The highest is 7, so that's your degree. Okay, so let's look at this next binomial. When we write it in standard form, it'll be 6x squared plus 13. So how many exponents do we have here? Guys, how many exponents do we have? So that exponent is obviously the highest, and that's degree 2. Okay, go ahead and try these two before I just give them to you. Okay, look at the third one. Is it in standard form? Okay, it's already in standard form, so you don't have to rearrange it. We just look for the highest exponent. Well, how many exponents are there? 2. This one and this one, and which one's higher? So it's degree 4. And then for this one, it was also already in standard form. How many exponents do you have? Right, and the exponent is a 1, so it's degree 1. Okay, any questions so far? Alright, when a polynomial is written so that the exponents decrease from left to right, that's known as standard form, the coefficient of the first term is called the leading coefficient. And the term without a variable is called the constant. So in each of these examples below, you're going to rewrite the polynomial in standard form, and you're going to identify the leading coefficient and the constant term. Okay, so first let's rewrite this one in standard form. What will it look like once it's in standard form? Right, you've got to remember to carry that negative with the 2. And then plus 9, because the 9's positive. Okay, what is the leading coefficient of that polynomial? Negative 2. Because the leading coefficient is the coefficient of the first term. My first term is negative 2x squared, so the coefficient of that is negative 2. And then what is the constant value of this polynomial? 9. Okay, go ahead and try the remaining 5. And then what does it look like in standard form? Okay, and then what is the leading coefficient? And what is the constant? Right, there's not one. So you could either write 0 or none, because technically there's 0 there. Okay, for the next one, what does it look like in standard form? 3y to the third. Right. Okay, so what's the leading coefficient? 3, and what's the constant? 16. Okay, your constant is the number without a variable. Okay, down here, what does it look like in standard form? Right? So what is its leading coefficient? Whoa, that's the degree. That's the degree. The leading coefficient is negative 3. Remember, the leading coefficient is the coefficient on the first term. Once it's in standard form. Okay, what's the constant? 0, yeah, because it's just not written there. Okay, then the next one. Okay, so what's the leading coefficient? Right. And what's the constant? And then what's the degree? 4. Remember, your degree is your highest exponent. Your leading coefficient is your first coefficient as long as it's already been in standard form. And then your constant is the number without the variable. Okay, last one. What will this look like in standard form? Right. So what's the leading coefficient? Good, because that's the understood negative 1 here in the coefficient place of the first term. And the constant is negative 10. Okay, we're going to be graphing polynomials in this unit, and the leading coefficient and degree will help us with graphing. So go ahead and turn to the next page. And I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to work these before we move on. It had a leading coefficient of 4, because once it was in standard form, the very first coefficient was a 4, and then the constant, the number without a variable, was 3. Any questions about that one? Okay, number 2. Once it's in standard form, it looks like that. That's a trinomial because it has 3 terms. Degree 4 because 4 is the highest exponent. The leading coefficient is a negative 1 because that's an understood 1 right there. And then the constant value was a negative 6. Alright, the next one only had 1 term, so putting in standard form was pretty easy. Degree 5, leading coefficient of 1, and then constant 0. Okay, the next one in standard form, you just had to reverse the order of the 2 terms because this one had a higher exponent. That's a binomial because it has 2 terms, degree 2, leading coefficient of 3, and then a constant of 0 because there's no number without a variable. Okay, and then the last one, that's it in standard form. It's a trinomial because it has 3 terms. It's degree 2 because that's your highest exponent. The leading coefficient is negative 6 and the constant is negative 3. Any questions so far? Okay, now we're going to talk about your test quickly before I call you up to show you your grade. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to pull up the blog just to show you where you can go to find the video of me going over the review.